what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you here. Just to chat a little bit about the Packers midweek update as they are preparing to take on the San Francisco 49ers this coming Sunday. So you know me, my name is Jon, host of Lombardi Time Brews, and this is partner in life, Claudia. And she's got the injury update for you today. This is what happened at practice today for the Packers.
Jair Alexander did not practice today. Yep. Limited would be Kenny Clark, Josh Jacobs, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Rasheed Walker, Colby Wooden, Edgerrin Cooper, and Evan Williams. And Marshawn Lloyd, our poor Marshawn Lloyd, was moved to the non-football injury list.
Yeah, which does open up a roster spot, technically removing him from the 53, putting him on NFI. But man, I want to talk about like bad luck rookie years, right? Now, as for the rest of these, keep in mind, a lot of these limited injuries, these are guys like Josh Jacobs. We have not heard otherwise any substantive injury going on with Josh Jacobs. Kenny Clark seems to be limited basically every practice, every year, right? So some of these guys, there doesn't need to be any real concern. They will play. It's just they're vets and they don't need to practice full out. Jair Alexander, bit of a different story. Matt LaFleur acknowledged in his press conference today just how different the defense is when Jair Alexander isn't able to be out there. And now he's missing more time. LaFleur did say as though they would give him the week, just like they always do, and we'll see what comes of it. With Miami coming up the next Thursday on a short week, I don't know, we might have to brace for more of an absence from Jair Alexander. So, in order to give you just some other news that's non-injury related, number one, we got the return of Mr. Magoo. Alex Magoo is back in a Green Bay uniform. He has been re-signed to the practice squad and again signed as a wide receiver for the practice squad. As beat reporter said, he was not seen in a red jersey. He was out there running routes. LaFleur talked in his presser about how it's nice to have him back. So, Alex Magoo is back. And then also Carl Brooks. Yeah, Carl Brooks is not just the tip that made headlines. The whole man was named the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. So, yeah, that's right. Carl Brooks is back. Taylor, what's up, Taylor?
Saying Kittle playing damn.
I know, right? Like that news just broke a little bit ago. That's the disappointing one. Because, I mean, LaFleur said, like, Purdy's going to play. But then there's Bosa, and there seems to be a lot of pessimism, at least from what I've read, about Nick Bosa playing or not this coming Sunday. He sounds kind of unlikely. However, George Kittle himself saying he's going to play. He's not missing a chance to play the Packers. So thanks for that, George. Anyway, yeah, he'll be out there. Bosa, it really does sound like Bosa's not going to be there. And LaFleur even said today that there are plays that they cross out of the playbook if Bosa is playing. If he's not there, bring him back in. So we'll see what it means. We'll have to see how the week progresses. Other than that, I just wanted to recap a couple of the little like newsworthy bits out of the press conference just to summarize it for you. LaFleur got a really interesting question regarding when you're going up against a coach that you know incredibly well, have known for 20 years. Do you go by what the Packers have done or what the 49ers have done just the last 11 weeks? Like, do you just go by the tape they're doing this year? Or do you go by how you know him for the last 20 years, basing on his tendencies from when you knew him when he was a wee lad, like that kind of thing? And LaFleur said, basically, you just look at the tape from this year. And I thought that that was a really interesting question because I personally, too, would have guessed, like, there are some things that you fall back on, knowing that your friend likes to do this. Well, he did kind of stick to, no, it really is just in the present. We turn on the film and we focus on what they're doing, which also could partly explain why they didn't really adjust to the Bears doing anything different on offense last week. So just going to throw that out there. Taylor.
They're saying that's why we got Salah and we bring in Salah for this matchup.
Interesting tidbit about that too. Like, he was directly asked today, does having Salah around going against the 49ers, a team that he should still know well, is he giving you, like, personnel reports, giving you the insider? And LaFleur basically just got kind of right there and said he's been helpful. So, yes. Indeed,
LaFleur
Taylor.
Is so cheeky.
Oh, especially this year.
He's been
like,
helpful.
There's some added sarcasm from LaFleur today. Well, he even said today he gave what he called the PG version when referring to Rasheed Walker. Like, he compliments Walker And he says something along the lines of like, hey, when I pat you on the butt, don't make me have poop on my hands. Right. So basically saying, don't make me look like an idiot for complimenting you. And LaFleur dropped that today. Like, these are getting weird.
The press conference was weird. A reporter asked a question and used the word crap load.
Crap ton.
Crap ton, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be Matt Schneidman from The Athletic asking about Jair missing games. Man. And then one last tidbit about Saleh, because there's been some discussion about, like, the Packers have said that he's just helping on offense. Is that true? Is he really just helping on a... Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, LaFleur acknowledged again today that Saleh has been very helpful. He is just there Monday to Friday and then goes home to his family on the weekend, so he's not present for games. But the 25-yard completion from Love to Watson, apparently that play and its installation, or that version of it, was Saleh's idea because of something that he saw in Chicago's defense. That's how you contribute when you're a consultant. Taylor.
We play Sunday and Thursday against two good offenses. Woo-wee.
Yeah, with a beaten up Jair.
Right,
yeah, that's less than ideal.
Like, Tua came back and seems to be coming back decently strong.
Well, on the plus side, I mean, he is doing well, but it's not like Miami's offense is at their full power where they're dropping 40 on everybody. So, I mean, at least looking at Miami, like, okay, they're not doing terrific. And the same thing can kind of be said about San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco's sitting at 5-5. And I got to tell you, like, I got some numbers here. Most of them are coming up Friday, but looking in the red zone, we think the Packers are god-awful in the red zone offensively, right? Well, the Packers rank 27th in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers, 26th. They're just as bad. In fact, they're winning by like 0.06%.
This could be a very interesting game.
And then in terms of red zone defense, the Packers are 19th in red zone defense. San Francisco 49ers, 23rd. I also just saw a super interesting stat about how the 49er defense seemingly gets worse as the game goes on. In the first quarter, their most like numbers, EPA, etc., have them as one of the best defenses in the league. In the fourth quarter, one of the worst. And if you dive into the 49er fandom, which is kind of melting down, they're not used to being 500, they talk about how it's a lack of depth and the fact that their coordinator ain't too smart. So we've lived in those conversations before.
We know.
Yeah.
So I was saying, if we play defense like we did Bears game, I'm cutting my TV off on the defense.
I mean, you don't got to turn the TV off. Just cover your eyes.
Right?
That'll be easier.
I do it
easier,
90
not
times
off.
a game.
Yeah, right. But, I mean, in terms of a couple of the numbers that I can give you here, in terms of rushing defense, now these are on the year, so not just recent trends, on the year. In terms of rushing defense, the Niners are 8th. In passing defense, the Niners are 8th. That's just kind of their trend right now. And then in terms of rushing offense, 7th. In terms of passing offense, 4th. That's in terms of total yardage from the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, we'll break that down much more, talking about trends and what that actually means on Friday. But that gives you a general overview of the fact that 49ers are 5-5. But this is still a very, very good football team that if they're clicking, just like the Packers, they can hang with anybody. So we will see how it turns out, of course. Scott.
Hi, Jon and Claudia.
Hello, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Good to see you. Buccaneers.
Yo, we need to beat the 49ers. We just have to. I'm tired watching them beat us.
Hey, you can take a little bit of solace in the fact that the last 2 regular season matchups, the Packers won. It's just the playoffs that we don't beat the 49ers. So, but hey, I mean, if the Packers come out of this game victorious, I just saw somebody, I wish I could credit them. I don't recall who it was, though. They were talking about how if the Packers are victorious here, their playoff chances jump all the way up to 94%. Meanwhile, sticking the Niners down to a 5-6 record, dropping theirs all the way into like the 30% type region. So obviously that doesn't mean a lot, but still good to know at this juncture. Packers do fine against the Niners in the regular season.
Taylor's saying Matt play calling will have Niners defense and red zone elite.
Just don't do any sweeps on the 6. Yeah, right? Remember rocking these? The Fleur, the problem with the red zone, have there been poor calls? Yeah. But the problem with the red zone is much more Love being off, receivers not catching the ball, right? There's been stuff that has been overcomplicated. There's been stuff that's been way too cute. Yes. But for the most part in the red zone, I feel pretty comfortable saying it really comes down to technique, fundamentals, and the fact that the Packers have a whole bunch of drops in the red zone. And that doesn't help anybody, right? Especially even comparing them to a team against the 49ers, another team that does struggle in the red zone, right? We talked about that. But even their drop percentage, like in totality, way lower than Green Bay's. And they've been trotting out their depth receivers all year. Green Bay's got to start catching the ball.
Raganees, I know we beat them recently in regular season, but the last loss still stings.
Right. I mean, I know it's the last 4 times the Packers have played the Niners. The last 2 have been those playoffs matchups. The 2 previous were the 2 regular season matchups. So the last 2 Niners have beaten the Packers, and they're way worse than they're winning a regular season game. I know.
Taylor's saying it was a pass and plenty, and then a jet sweep.
You are correct, Taylor. It was, yeah. There, especially against the Bears, no, it wasn't great. Looking at the whole season, yeah, there have been some perfectly fine calls in the red zone that just don't work because someone drops the ball. Love airmails a throw, whatever. So that's why I kind of fall back on it's more of an execution problem than it is a getting too cute problem. With that being said, you have Josh Jacobs. I would love to see them just run it up the middle, run behind Ryan and Tom, who are becoming your road grading, run blocking crew. They're doing great the last 3 weeks. Just run behind them more often. You don't gotta be cute 2 out of 3 plays.
This is coming from people who, when we had A.J. Dillon, kept saying, stop running up the middle.
Yeah, right.
Now we actually have a running back
who can do it better.
And linemen who are making lanes.
It's true.
Run up the middle.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's true. It's true. Taylor.
Third and 11, you call a jet sweep.
Yeah. And remember a couple of years ago when we did it to Lazard, our slowest receiver? Man, jet sweeps, they're one of those things. When they don't work, they are horrendous, and you remember them forever. But when they work, they're quite nice. It's one of those. But yeah, right. I've come to the side of don't call it on the 10-yard line.
Ragnees, let's get Hackett back to gold zone, right?
Well, hey, I mean, Hackett might be unemployed soon, so with the way things are going with the Jets, woof. By the way, I haven't weighed on it much, but, the whole, proving he's a smart guy thing from McAfee in regards to Douglas and Goot from a couple of years ago, it does add a certain level of joy to what's going on with the Jets, does it not? I at least find myself there. So, that, Taylor, what you got?
What does Steno do?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. Steno is the offensive coordinator, right? LaFleur is the play caller. But in terms of actually crafting, let's say, the philosophy of the offense in a given week, deciding what plays from your mass encyclopedia are actually going to go in versus which ones aren't. Because teams have tons of plays at their disposal, but they don't walk in on Sunday with this full 500 thing menu, right? Instead, they walk in with a much more curated list of this is what we believe will work against this defense. This is the things that we worked on this week. Now, every so often you hear stories about we even ran that in 7 weeks. We pulled it out and it worked. That's not normal. That's why it's news when that happens, right? So they curate this sheet. Steno is, he's instrumental in the production of that catered menu, if that makes sense, right? I also do believe, even though he's not the O-line coach anymore, considering that that's his background, he probably does make an appearance in those meetings with some fair regularity and supervises one Luke Butkus, the actual O-line coach, right? But that's truly in a situation where you don't have a play caller. If the plays are called by the head coach, what does the OC do? They craft that menu that then the head coach executes. That's the reality of it. And Taylor, I know you're making a joke. You're saying he collects checks, but the Packers offense is top 5 in a lot of different metrics.
And also,
doing well offensively.
It's kind of funny you say that because I feel like every watch party, the second that there's a play where it's that was an interesting choice, everybody calls for Stenovich to be the play caller.
Right? Yeah, so we did deal with that this last week.
It's a little funny that you go, he's just collecting a check, and everybody
Yeah,
else is like, Matt LaFleur needs to stop calling plays. Get
Yeah.
Stanovich in here.
No, I mean, Steno has the job that you are not going to hear about right now. He's the offensive coach who doesn't like do anything tangible. He doesn't call the plays and he doesn't do the plays. You also don't hear about Tom Clements a whole lot, right? Like it's just that's kind of the nature of in-season coaching. You on Josh Sweat in 2020. All right, I mean, I can get down with that. And Carlton Davis. I mean, Davis is like, I think he's beginning to get up there. He's what, like 28, 29? Like he's in that ballpark. And he's playing for the Lions now. So just to update you. Yeah, he's playing for the Lions now. In fact, I think he got at least a couple pass breakups. Is he one of the guys that got a pick on Love the other day? He might have been. Rockin' East.
Tom, name 3 things we need to work on by the time we reach the playoff.
All right. So just in total, Rocket Knees, I think let's go defensively first, okay? In fact, I'll give you one offense, one defense, one special teams. Defensively, they have to, and it's a lot easier said than done, but they have to do it in time for the playoffs. They have got to find the key to unleashing the pass rush. I know we've talked about it. I'm still just not a believer that Kenny Clark just forgot how to move on a football field. And Rashawn Gary, while he is doing better as of late, like I talked about yesterday, he's not, we don't see any traits from him that he's going to take over a game either, right? So what is it about what they are being asked to do that is causing this lack of actual production? And you can make the argument, I saw someone trying to say it the other day, and I thought like there might be some merit to that. Maybe Rashawn Gary isn't bull rushing enough. Okay, well that has always been his main strength, right? Maybe that does need to come more into play. Maybe they've had some luck when they've done stunts, and they've had other weeks where they've done very stunt-heavy fronts, and it's gotten absolutely nothing. So analyzing the difference between why did it work one week and not work the next. But it's pretty clear on the defensive line. You've got one side that's like Gary's at least being productive-ish, and then you got nothing coming from the other side. And they got to figure out why. If it's a strengths, if it's a scheme thing, they got to address it quick. Special teams. In terms of special teams, honestly, like that seems to actually be going okay. And I'm not sure how you fix this at this juncture, but the long snapping is still wildly inconsistent. And that goes for both field goals and punting. So I would marker that as the thing that should get the most attention, or penalties. They're still a bugaboo. They're always going to be a bugaboo. And then offensively, yeah, it's the obvious. It's red zone. They just are not producing well enough in the red zone. And I think it comes down to execution. To me, some of the issues when I do say execution are the simple things, but there's other things involved there too, including spacing. Sometimes when they're 40 yards out, their spacing looks magnificent. Then they run a similar looking play at about the 10, and you can tell that lack of space really throws them off. So that's something that has to get worked on like in its entirety at this juncture. So those would be the 3 Rocket Knees.
Tackle the person with the ball. Catch the ball.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
I only need 2.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
They both
That's
would
all
help
I
a
want.
lot. It's true. Yeah.
That's all I ask for.
We have seen worse tackling years by the Packers, but it's not exactly a banner year in that regard either. I'll give you that.
I don't ask for much.
That's true.
Taylor, Nixon needs to have ball skills. You there, but never get your hand turn away. Oh, you're there, but you never get your hand in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Nixon, he has been a lot better in coverage this year than he has been in other years. But yes, in terms of actually forcing pass breakups, I would say that's never really been a strength of his. He is fairly decent at like the actual coverage aspect, though. What you're saying about would be a welcome change.
Rocket Knees wants end zone improvement ASAP. Commitment to the run more and more. Innovation defensively and to try exotic things, my opinion.
Yeah.
Not good at exotic things.
Well, and in terms of defense, like they have done, like they've gone down that route. That's part of the stunting thing. They certainly have rolled out a number of delayed blitzes. We talked about it earlier in the year. I haven't seen it as much as of late. Maybe they need to return to it. Maybe it's tough without Preston now. But the 4 horsemen or the psycho package, right, on the defensive line. Maybe experiment with that more. But like they have gone down that road. What we are seeing from the pass rush, and part of the reason this is just tough, is because watching LVN, let's single him out. He rushes the passer, and he just doesn't win. Like that's just the simple thing, right? Like he does a bull, he presses him a little bit, and then it just goes nowhere, and it's done. And then he doesn't necessarily have the secondary moves, which we all knew was his weakness, but it just doesn't have them, and then it just stops. Kingsley Anagbare is just not getting enough penetration. When you watch Kenny Clark, there have been times where Kenny Clark's gone the wrong way, but then there's other times where Kenny Clark just isn't as disruptive as he's been historically. And so you look at it and you go, what is the problem here? And the real base of it is like they're just not getting off their blocks. Generally, that's an indicator of needing new dudes to do it. So we got to see. But yeah, I mean, that's the area realistically that has to get focused in on the most. And then in terms of the back end of the defense, you want to fix the back end of the defense, have Jair Alexander start playing again. Like that's just it. You're rolling out depth corners right now, and you don't want to have to. The difference in the way Hafley calls the defense when Jair is out there versus not out there is massive. Mm-hmm. You can tell how much more confidence he has in going after the QB when he's got Jair on the back end. Jair's got to come back soon.
Rockinese saying, I agree. LVN gets a pass because Rashawn Gary worked out. We will see with him.
Yeah, and I think that has been part of it. The athletic potential when it comes to LVN is just so, like, you can see why they would want that, right? But it just isn't working. And at least in year 2 of Rashawn, you would see glimpses. And we saw LVN have some glimpses last year. I think that's part of the reason even then he's getting a little bit of an extra pass, but they're just not there yet this year. I still think he's a player with sky-high potential, but we do have to be honest about like the product he's putting on right now is very blasé. It's very, very minimally impactful.
Taylor saying, I want imagine Gary, Brooks, Wyatt, and Josh Sweat.
Back to Josh Sweat. Hey, 3 out of 4 there, you're getting a pretty good pass rush. I mean, of course, adding Josh Sweat would help as well, right? But Kenny Clark, I can just tell you, he's going nowhere with that new contract. They need to figure out how to re-unlock Kenny Clark, not just wish him away. What's up, Will?
Will! I needed this. Love the live pod. So what's your concern this week? I missed it since joining late. Thoughts on pass rushers stepping it up?
Oh, man. I just went blue in the face talking about the pass rush as well. But yeah, they got to win more. In terms of why am I worried about the 49ers? Now, I do think the Packers stand, I hate to even say it this way because it sounds pessimistic and it's not. I think the Packers match up better, stand a better chance against the 49ers this year than they have in a number of other years. I mean, the Niners have some massive injuries, including Javon Hargrave, Brandon Ayuk. Like, they've got some big guys that are going to be out. Now, Nick Bosa might be out, too. That should have the Packers feeling pretty good, right? But it's still the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, they still have Debo. Juwan Jennings is doing some great work as a wide receiver, rather unexpectedly. But he's doing some great work. They still have Kittle. Christian McCaffrey is now back, which you haven't been able to say for anything except for the last 2 games for the Niners. And defensively, when looking over their roster defensively, Fred Warner's still a monster. But there's just not all of the talent around Fred Warner that there used to be. And yet they're still a top 10 defense, at least in terms of yards. It's still a good team. So I guess my concerns with the Niners are what they've always been. That's just a really good football team with really good players. It's just Green Bay does match up a lot better to them this year than they have in past.
Will saying, is this a trick game?
A trick game? No, and it doesn't qualify as a trap game either. Niners are too good for this to be a trap. I do expect the Packers to not play down to their opponent in this one. Tough to play down to the Niners, right? I think this is one that whole general malaise that we've been talking about won't be a factor for Green Bay. They should come ready for this one for sure.
Taylor saying, even with Bosa, he's getting cooked by Walker or Tom. I'm not worried about him.
Yeah, Tom has matched up historically very well against Bosa. Rashid should do fine enough, especially if he gets a little bit extra help. That's what we've seen historically from Sheed against Bosa. But like LaFleur said in his press conference today, if Bosa is not out there, there are plays that they will add to the playbook that if he were out there are gone. From a schematic standpoint, Bosa being out, whether you have him handled or not, he is so good, just like Hutchinson was in Detroit, that you game plan for him. And obviously his absence opens up a lot more flexibility around that topic.
Taylor's saying my offense is good. I'm worried about my defense against their offense.
Yeah, for sure. This should be a game where the Packers defense returns to its dictating, or at least attempts to. Yeah, right? It's tough to do that well, right? But we saw against the Bears, it felt very reminiscent of the Joe Barry defense, just from the standpoint of it felt like a defense on their heels, not on their toes. And we have seen other games prior this year where they played much more on their toes. And that is what I think we should see return against the Niners.
Rockin' saying Wicks needs to step up, Alexander needs to get healthy, and Evan Williams needs to be on the field. At least we're not talking about the kicker anymore, on a positive note.
Yeah, I'm going to go with true, Rocket Knees. All those are very, very true. Wicks needs to stop dropping the friggin' ball.
Yes.
Right? That's just naturally part of it, and I think we are going to see Wicks a little bit less, just like we did against Chicago, until that's rectified. Good. Alexander, yeah, he needs to play. They got to get him right. They got to get him on the field. Going against Debo or Niners at all, and then going against Tyreek Hill 4 days later, less than ideal when you don't have your number one corner. Then we'd be looking at, Evan Williams. Yeah, I mean, Evan Williams, he did play against the Bears, played well against the Bears, kind of just kept going where he was. He should be pretty good to go now. And then, yes, indeed, we are not talking about the kicker anymore, and that is lovely, is it not?
Taylor's saying, I want to draft a wide receiver.
We might see one this year. It feels a year early. I mean, keep in mind, after this year is done, you still got Watson for another year on contract. You still got Dobbs for another year on contract. You got Wicks for 2 years, and you got Reed for 2 years. So where's that rookie going to go? Because that's 4, right? And then you've got the rights to Bo for a couple more years because he was an exclusive rights free agent this last offseason, or you locked him in through this year. And then you've also got if you are adding one, they're going to be no better than wide receiver 5. So it feels a year early to me.
Taylor also saying offense needs to score in the red zone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's possible that Luke Musgrave could help in that regard. He's not like a Jimmy Graham, just jump over him type. But the reality is, he's another receiver who could help in that regard. And Matt LaFleur did acknowledge today that Musgrave is doing good work, and he seems to be a few weeks out, or a couple weeks is, I think, the exact word that LaFleur used. So I kind of have been feeling like mid-December based upon what LaFleur has been said before about Musgrave. So we're inching close there.
Taylor also saying, I want more speed.
You can want that. I mean, the Packers are realistically one of the faster offenses in the league. I mean, you look at Reed, Dobbs, Watson. Sure, Wicks isn't the fastest, but he's not exactly slow either. And then looking at their tight ends in Kraft and Musgrave, dude, they already fast. Way faster than they ever were with Rodgers, except for those early couple of years. So I don't know how much faster there is to get, man.
Taylor's saying we haven't seen Dobbs get fade routes in the red zone like last year.
True. I mean, he really didn't do that many fades historically. Dobbs has been a lot of back shoulder stuff, a lot of curl stuff in the red zone. And that's true. We haven't seen Dobbs in the red zone as much this year. Yeah, I'll go with you.
And also saying, look at the Dolphins. I'm assuming that's in reference to speed.
Well, yeah. Tyreek Hill is one of the fastest humans alive, dude. You don't just go draft another one. Same with Waddle. And plus, keep in mind, too, the Packers have a very definitive type at wide receiver. They like larger-bodied wide receivers. In part because then they, generally speaking, are better run blockers, too. So the hopes that the Packers are going to pick like a Jalen Hyatt from the Giants or even a Waddle, it's not their type. They would have to burn the scouting book and write a new one in order to do that, and I don't see that happening this decade. So, All right, everybody, it is time for us to get on out of here. Thanks for chatting about the Green Bay Packers today. Of course, on Friday, I'll be back previewing Packers versus 49ers, taking a look at that matchup. But until then, it's time for us to head on out. Do hope you have a great day. And as always, go Pack, go.